Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast in which Craig Touch and myself, Roland Hume, chat some of the interesting figures and leading lights of this crazy industry of writing and self-publishing. And today we are delighted to welcome a very special guest who I think this is the first time you have heard from her, but she is very familiar to Craig and I because we've been working together on a number of things. Michelle, thank you very much for joining us. You are, Michelle, the author of some fantastic rockstar romance books. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we are delighted to have you. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig? And why are we here?
Doing great. Thanks, Roland. And yes, welcome to the show, Michelle. We have, in fact, been working with you for a while. And, this was something that we started, a number of months back where we wanted to work with an author. Roland and I both do consult calls with authors all the time, and we enjoy doing those. And we want to, sort of expand on that a little bit more because we always feel like, we both, us and the authors generally feel like there's a lot of value in these discussions. And one of the things we wanted to try out was sort of more of an extended mentorship type of a service. And we never want to roll out services without testing them out first. So you were so gracious to allow us to use you as a guinea pig and work with us. And we had a number of sessions where we spoke with you, and the whole point was to see whether or not we could help you with your catalog of books, with your marketing on Facebook, and improve the results you were getting, and show you how to use it a little bit more effectively. And I know that you're sort of the queen of spreadsheets and data and all that stuff. I think you even wrote a blog for us about it. But
oh yeah, just for newsletter promotions. We didn't get into the math for everything else, but just blog about how to pick the right newsletter promotions by the numbers for the best value for your dollar. Which I don't know why people aren't shopping like that, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and listen, that's the sort of thing where you can take, if you're good at numbers and breaking things down, you can apply it to a whole bunch of different things. In that case, you applied it to the newsletter. But in this case, when we were working with you, we were always impressed with you come with all these spreadsheets with all your data lined up, and you'd have everything down to the penny. So it was great. So what we wanted to do today is sort of have a discussion about that process and take us through how it all went for you and your thoughts on it. And if other people are looking to get help with it, then they can contact us as well, and they can see whether or not this is something that would work for them.
Okay, great. So yeah, when you guys first did the call out, it was kind of to your newsletter list looking for an author that had already been doing advertising and had some data built up of things that they'd tried, so that you could test out if you could make their results better. And what we found is you definitely can make my results better. Like you were just saying, I'm the queen of the spreadsheet. So I had all this old data from these old marketing pushes that I'd done, trying different things just on my own, just trying to figure it out. And in this podcast, we're going to kind of fast forward through all the months that you guys worked with me and cherry pick all the best things that we learned to share with other authors. So I think everybody could benefit from having you personally look at their process. And also we'll talk about some of the tricky things that are hard to just generalize. But I'm also going to share in this podcast a lot of what we pulled and learned and what I was surprised by, because I'm not a newbie to marketing. I told you in my first email to you guys, like all the different marketing things that I'd tried, and I have data for all of them on all these different books. And I was really interested by the things that I learned from you that I wasn't expecting. So I have a catalog of, if you want to look me up on Amazon for this podcast, I'm Michelle Hazen with a Z, and I've got a catalog of 9 books. Some are trad, some are indie. For this experiment specifically, we used my complete series, which is the Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll series, because it's a 6-piece series, which makes it a little easier to advertise. And we advertised 3 books out of that. There was Cruel Kind of Beautiful, book 1, and that one had the best ad results. Then we did Playing the Pauses, which is book 2, because that's a fan favorite among my readers. And that one had the best conversion from clicks to sales, which we always thought was interesting, that the ads ran better for A Cruel Kind of Beautiful. But once we got them there, more people would buy Playing the Pauses. And then we also did the box set of the whole Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll series. And those ads were the most profitable because that was the highest price point item, right? Instead of charging $4 for a book, I was able to charge $10 for the whole box set. And that made it a lot easier to make a profit off of the Facebook ads. We also did a tiny bit of advertising toward the end for an erotica novella that I have under a pen name, and those ads performed incredibly well. They just blew away my Rockstar book ads. But that was also when we discovered a whole new ad type that we hadn't tried before. So I'll talk about that later, our big discovery about ad type. And then also, after we stopped working together, I kept playing with different things, and I found one surprising new strategy after we stopped working together that I think a lot of authors would really love to try. That's really easy on your pocketbook. And so we'll talk about that at the end. But to start out, I want to share some of the numbers of our overall results. So
can I say one thing before we do
Yes.
that? One of the things that I think I just wanted to stress is that your books are very good. You have a collection of a number of books. I've read your Rockstar romances and they're really well written and good. You've got the validation. You're already a traditionally published author. So one of the most important things in advertising is it doesn't matter how much money you throw at advertising unless you're selling something people want to buy. And you have already a catalog of very quality books that people have clearly demonstrated that they do enjoy and do want to buy. And I think that's one thing as a foundation for anything you do in advertising you have to look at. You have to be selling the best product that you can.
Oh, thank you so much, Roland. That's really kind of you to say. I thought it was amazing of you to read the books when we worked together to kind of, see what they were really about and really understand the product. But you're right. I wasn't going to mention that at all. And it is a really good point that you want to make sure that you're starting with the best book that you possibly can. And, I'm a book coach and freelance editor too. So I'm always a big proponent of, yes, put the money and time into your editing before you put your book out there. Don't just do marketing. You want the best book possible. So our overall results, we worked together running Facebook ads from December to August at a very low cost per day. We were only doing $3 to $5 a day. So very low cost ads to just test various things out without blowing through a lot of money really quickly. And I wanted to be clear that I don't think people doing a mentorship in the future need to take that long or necessarily need to think that they have the budget to keep going that long. We wanted to go for a long time so that we could test so many different variables on so many different books and really take the time to make sure that the data was clear and that we weren't pulling it too early. And that's something I'm going to talk about really soon too. But the biggest headline from our results was that I looked at what I made the year before I worked with you guys, and I wasn't doing any marketing that year. I have all my books out, I have social media, whatever. I wasn't doing any specific marketing. And from the year before I started working with you to the year that I was working with you, I had a 10 times increase in revenue. So I sold 10 times as many dollars of books the year I was working with you. And that's especially notable because we're talking about 9 months, not 12. So 10 times increase in 9 months over what I'd made in the previous 12 months.
And those were books that, you had already had, right? A lot of times people think that it's only valuable to advertise your latest book, but this was looking at books that were previously published that you've been selling. It wasn't like
these books have been out for about 5 years. They weren't brand new.
Yeah, I just say, as long as people realize this wasn't like because your numbers weren't skewed because you had a new release during that time, right?
Absolutely. No, that was just backlist books. You can absolutely recharge your backlist just with marketing. So we sold one huge thing is I was wide, right? Because I didn't want to sell my soul to Amazon. And so I was wide, and you guys talked me into going into Kindle Unlimited and trying that out. And I put the books on Kindle Unlimited to see what kind of organic discoverability I would get without ads. And what I found was nothing. I got nothing. They did nothing. But as soon as we started running ads, a huge amount of my revenue came from Kindle Unlimited. So the ads that I'd run before, the conversion rate and the profitability of them was wildly different than what I got with you guys, because 70% of my revenue was coming from Kindle Unlimited. So many people were willing to try the books when they could just get them on Kindle Unlimited versus buying them. So I think that was a really huge lesson for me, that I really did need Kindle Unlimited to be part of my strategy, and that it worked enormously better in conjunction with Facebook ads than just Kindle Unlimited with no ads.
Can I say one quick thing about that? Just
Yeah.
one of the reasons why we recommended that is because Google and Apple have this law or this rule that 30% of all the revenue generated on apps that are on their platform, so an Android phone or an iPhone, have to go towards Apple or Google. And that meant for Amazon that they decided it wasn't profitable to sell ebooks any longer. So you will often not be able to buy an ebook if you click on an ad and go to Amazon and you like what you'll see. You can't click buy now. You can just put it into a thing, and when you get to a computer you can buy it, whereas you can read a book with Kindle Unlimited with just a click. So when it comes to advertising, it is very, very challenging. It does work when you're selling a book that's not in Kindle Unlimited, but it's a streamlined process if you have your books in Kindle Unlimited, because people can buy them with the tap of a mouse. And considering 90% of people are on Facebook or Instagram on their phones, that is a game changer, really.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that at all. That is crazy. But you make a really good point. That would change a lot of the easy click through from an ad on your phone results. That might be a huge part of why I'm having trouble getting sales, but not having any trouble getting Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've experienced myself, and I noticed when you are advertising books that are wide or not available in Kindle Unlimited, you get brand awareness, and your books, if people click on your ads, they get fed into the Amazon algorithm. So the next time that person logs into Amazon, it might say, last time you were on, you were looking at this. So there is a path towards them buying a book, but the most direct path for Facebook ads, if you're selling your book on Amazon, is through Kindle Unlimited. It's like an unbroken stream. And so that's why I very strongly recommend it at the moment as a tactic.
That makes a great amount of sense. And then also I found that the box set, having my box set in Kindle Unlimited was great, because once people start reading, they don't even have to stop long enough to borrow the next book in the series. They can just go straight through. And I definitely found a big difference with that. So I think it's worth bundling all your stuff together in a box set to put in Kindle Unlimited. And to be fair, my box set doesn't even come in paperback, right? It's not a physical box set. It's only ebook or Kindle Unlimited, but it's been an incredibly useful sales tool for me. So I'm really glad I went ahead and did that. Also in results for one of my books, over my previous marketing results, we cut my previous cost per click in half. And then we also drastically increased my conversion rate to sales and my return on investment with adding the Kindle Unlimited read. So when we're talking about Facebook ads, if you guys have run Facebook ads before, a big part of why I wanted to do a mentorship is because the back end of Facebook looks like a space shuttle.
Yes.
You know, like the control panel is just enormous, and it's really overwhelming and hard to learn how to use. And so I think a lot of people go to the expensive Amazon ads because they're just easier to make. But Facebook ads, once you know how to use them, like just to do a call with you guys to just learn how to use them, they're pretty simple once you figure out which buttons are the buttons you need to use. But I was super scared and overwhelmed by that. But the two main things that you need to know for Facebook ads are targeting and ad creative, right? So I wanted to talk about what we used in those two areas that worked. The targeting, what we took was a lookalike audience from my newsletter followers. And I believe it was a 5% similarity to the newsletter subscribers is what we did. And we then narrowed that to women aged 25 to 65, because that's who mainly reads my books. And then we were using traffic ads. So just to be clear for people who want to try to reproduce these results. So the ad creative, so this is, you know, the pictures and the words that go on your ad. And so one of the things I learned right up front from Roland is you need to use emojis in your ad copy, which I had dumbly never done before. I was like, emojis are for text messages. No, they're a super fast way to get across a tone in your ad copy, and they're kind of grabby and easy to read, so to speak, right? Picture is worth 1,000 words and all that. Also, I wanted to mention we changed the ad image a lot more often than we changed the ad words. We found that the image, when people were scrolling, grabbed people more reliably than changing the words. And so we ended up changing up our images more often. One of the things Roland suggested for our ad copy was using review quotes and emojis of little 5-star symbols as kind of social proof that the books were good or that other people had enjoyed them. And we had a really good time picking out the different quotes to use for the ads. I also didn't realize before the mentorship that you could include multiple options for headlines and different parts of the ad copy, and Facebook would cycle through all of them. So instead of having just one headline, you can have like 5 different headlines and it picks whichever one works best. And it doesn't tell us, annoyingly, which ones worked best, but that way there's more variety. So if somebody's scrolling through and they've seen your ad 5 times, they may not be seeing the same words every time, which can help because you get that nice intersection of novelty and familiarity that works well in marketing.
Yeah, the rule of 7, I think we've spoken about that before, that generally it's an accepted wisdom that somebody needs to see your sales message 7 times before they act on it. But it's not always the same message. It's like in the old days, in Mad Men days, it was you'd see a billboard and you'd see listen to a radio commercial and you'd see an advert in the newspaper and they'd all be selling the same product. So each of those would be separate touches. And when you do Facebook advertising, you know, if you have a sort of stable of different taglines that cycle through, people will see your ad, and as you said, they see that familiarity, except it's a new sales message, so it is like an additional touch, which sounds really sketchy.
Yeah, but an additional view. Let's call it a view instead of a touch to sound
Yes.
No, I'm really glad you brought that up because we talked about that so much when we were doing our ad testing, the rule of 7, that, you know, people are most likely not going to click on it the first time that they see it. And so getting it to run long enough that they see it more often, and then the increased familiarity creates positive results, right? The more times they see it, the more positively they tend to feel toward it in general, is what I read about sales psychology way back in college. But yeah, trying to get those 7 touches is a big deal. And that was one of my big takeaways from working with you guys, is I wasn't running my ads long enough to get those 7 touches. I was like running them, getting like 1 or 2 and then giving up, and it significantly harmed my results. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just nodding.
Okay, so I wanted to share some of the ad images. So I'm going to share my screen. One of the things we found out about ad images is when we came in, our first theory was you mostly want the book cover, right? You want the book cover with just enough of a background to give some context about what the books are. So we were kind of using like a brick wall and a guitar because they're rock star books. Yeah. And what we found worked better than that in general was pictures of romantic couples together.
Yeah.
But not every romantic couple image was created equally. It wasn't like across the board, as soon as you slap a couple on there, it works. It really did take testing, because we would look at these and be like, okay, this couple's nice, this couple's nice, this couple's nice. And the results from the audience would be wildly different. And so you do have to do a little bit of testing with picking the images. And we tried to match the tone of the books, right? If you had an angstier romance, you might use one type of angstier couple picture. I was going for kind of light, funny rom-com. So laughing couple or couple kind of like playing around, giving each other a piggyback ride, that kind of stuff. And then also obviously throwing in guitars and things like that for the rock star thing. And
covers are one of those things that it really depends on the type of book, right? And if you're writing your, like rom-com stuff, the couples works well. But then if you're, if you're doing sort of billionaire or bad boy, then often it's that single guy that works better, So it's really, you really have to pick the right cover for the type of book that you're trying to sell.
Yeah, that's a good point, Craig. And we did try sexy man alone, a couple of images with that. And again, just like the couple image, we found that some worked really good and some didn't at all. It really depended on how sexy people thought the individual guy was. And we did have some very fun conversations where I'm sitting here talking to you guys being like, which guy is sexier? And you're like, we don't know, Michelle. That is your job to figure out which guy is sexier. So you won't be able to see this on the podcast, so we're going to describe the pictures. But if you want to go to the YouTube version of this, they're going to have a YouTube version, right? Where they
Absolutely.
Okay, and see our actual faces. So in the YouTube version, you can see these ads. And the first thing you'll notice is it's not just a picture. We kind of put a couple of different layers together where there's a couple. You can see the book cover, and then there's like a little arrow pointing to the book cover and sometimes a little swirly flourish in the edge. One thing we found that worked really good is putting a stamp that says Kindle Unlimited on the image. And Facebook doesn't let you put a lot of type on images, but it's okay with Kindle Unlimited. And that lets people know, yeah, you can find this book in Kindle Unlimited. And I think that's part of why we converted to page reads so easily, is that caught the eye of people who had Kindle Unlimited. So these are a couple of the ads that work the best for us. We've got kind of a playful couple that are barefoot and hugging and laughing. That one worked really well. And her hair is kind of flying in a free way that matches the cover of A Cruel Kind of Beautiful, which who knows if that was part of it or not, but it worked. And then the second one, this one worked really well for us, is a sexy couple kind of embracing up against a rough brick wall. We used that in a lot of things, and that worked really good. The next ones, these are the ones that work kind of medium. There's a white brick wall and a guitar in the background. And then there's a couple where the guy's kind of laughing, the girl's kind of nuzzling his cheek, and he's playing the guitar. And that one worked medium. And I think it's because that guy is about medium hot. He could be hotter.
Medium hot. I like that.
Medium hot. And then the next one is a jumping guy with a guitar. So there's a lot of energy and movement in there. And he's very muscular and tattooed, but kind of really lean muscular, and maybe a little too lean muscular. That's my theory for that one, why that one only worked medium, but it did work okay, just not as well as some of the other ones. If you've tried any Facebook ads at all, you know that Facebook has a Puritan filter where they don't want you to do anything that's too sexy. And so I wanted to show this ad as an example of one of the ones that we found that wouldn't get through because it was too sexy. And it's a shirtless guy. He's on top of a girl and they're kissing. And it's kind of soft focus, so you can't see very much. But I think the reason this one got flagged is because they're horizontal. So this is my tip for you, friends. If you're going to have a sexy image, put it vertical, not horizontal. So like they're making out up against a wall, not making out down on a bed, because the horizontal, I think, tips Facebook into saying too sexual. They're too far along on the base system to be showing up on Facebook ads.
Base system.
So there's that one. And then, oh, one of the neat tricks that Roland taught me about Facebook very early on is we would get together, we'd make these beautiful ads, we would post them, and then they would get rejected. And I would email him all in a tizzy, like, Roland, they rejected our beautiful ads. What were we going to do? And he would be like, just send them back exactly as they are for a review. And I was like, that sounds crazy. Why would I do that? And he says, because they'll just go through the second time for no good reason. And I thought, well, that's very strange advice. But it turned out to be true. Like 95% of the time, they would go through on the second try with no changes whatsoever. So enjoy that tip, friends, because you would not get very far in Facebook ads if you only got the ads that were accepted on the first try. I think it's because they have AI do it on the first try and maybe a human does it on the second try.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. You know, they get so many submissions every day that they have to have some sort of automated filter for that first round. But like any other, like Amazon does that a lot as well. And, you know, they reject things. And then as soon as you ask for a review, it goes through no problem.
Yeah, so keep that in mind when you're doing your Facebook ads. Also, here are some images of ads we tried that did not work well at all. People did not like these. The first one is A Cruel Kind of Beautiful, and the backdrop is just kind of a city skyline, a little neon looking. The second one is a couple, and again, I think these people are just not hot enough. I think that's the deal. People didn't find this couple hot. It's the same couple from on the cover of Playing the Pauses, but they're in a different position, and people didn't respond to them as well. So the third one is, again, that same image of the couple where she's nuzzling his cheek and there's a guitar. It didn't work super well.
He's medium hot.
Medium hot. So it worked medium in video and it worked bad in still. That's why that picture is effective. And then there's a couple, they're sitting by a campfire and they're kind of kissing, but I think they might look a little too young to work for my books. And maybe that's why this one didn't work.
Actually, I have to admit, from there, the way it's edited as well, it almost looks like they're sitting amidst the hellscape of a fire.
They do look a little bit like they're on fire. Maybe people were upset.
It looks like New Jersey right now.
Yeah. And then now there's a close-up of a sexy shirtless guy playing a guitar. I think this picture is super hot. It did not work. I don't know why. You got to test things, people. And then there's this other picture of a girl and a guy. She's getting a piggyback ride. They're laughing. People, again, just did not respond to that picture, even though to me, it looks really similar to a lot of the other ones we tried. So the big exciting thing that I wanted to share is the new ad type that we found right at the end there when we were advertising my erotica novella. We tried a new ad type. So originally we were doing video ads where it was just a still picture, and then Roland would add some kind of dynamic movement over the top, like a little scrolling piece of neon or floating little hearts, something, some movement to catch the eye, but it wasn't a video like people walking down the street moving, right? So what we found is if you make a video where you put a bunch of sexy stills together, so they're not moving, they're still pictures, but it flashes from one still to the next, to the next, to the next, and you can put together, maybe even if you've tested a bunch of your ads and you know which couples people like, you can put them all together into a video. And then that ended up working enormously well, both for my erotica novella and for my rocker series. Let's see if I can get this video to play for the YouTube people. You can see it flash through several sexy couples really quickly. And then it goes to the book cover and it kind of stays on the book cover for a second. So that part really sinks in. So when we did those, we nearly doubled and sometimes tripled our click-through rate on the ads. Like, it was insanely great. I was just blown away. I was like, I thought the best we could do was X number, and we were just blowing that out of the water week after week. So that was super cool. And I found CapCut edits is a free software that I could use to put that together pretty easily. I think Roland was using Photoshop.
I was using Photoshop because everything that I do always takes 10 times more effort than it needs to.
Oh, good. Yeah. And I can't do digital design at all. And so I needed very simple, very cheap. So I used CapCut. But one of the cheats that I used for my erotica novella is, like, Puritan filter. We need images that Facebook isn't going to clutch its pearls about. So what I did was I put together some images that hinted at BDSM, because it's a BDSM novella, but without showing it on the page. So there's a girl where her naked back is crisscrossed with rope. And then there's a guy with a big, sexy, masculine looking hand holding some, like, very sexy looking rope. Nobody's tied up. You can't say it's sexual. It's just making you think thoughts in that direction. And that ad worked so well, so well. There's a picture of a girl getting out of a cool looking old classic car with high heels. And, she's not on third base. She's just getting out of a car, but it looks very sexual. So those worked great. I definitely recommend using those kind of videos. So next section is, what were we doing during this whole mentorship, right? Like, we put up some ads, we ran them, then what? So I wanted to talk about the different variables that we changed to try to change our results. This is the scientific method, right? You're like, okay, we have all of these different pieces. Which pieces can we change to get better results? So before we even started, Roland looked at my book quality, my back jacket copy, and my cover. And he thought all of those were pretty darn good just starting out, which I took as a huge compliment, by the way. But from there, we still changed some of them just to see if we could do better. For instance, Roland made me a way better cover for my box set. I had kind of a half-assed box set cover before, and he made a way better one. So that one was lovely, and it definitely did increase our results. We tried different back jacket descriptions for a few of the different books. We tried different variations and to see which ones would work better. We added A+ Amazon content. So if you go onto your Amazon page and you see, like, those big pictures that sometimes big publishers will put in there, now as an indie author, you have the ability to put those pictures in there as well. And so we made some cool pictures with, like, mentioning the tropes that are in the book, or mentioning review quotes that people liked, with sexy images. And we did that to kind of spruce up my Amazon page. I was a little disappointed that we never saw a clear increase in sales directly after doing the Amazon A+ content, which I was very much expecting to see. But it definitely, like, makes my page look nicer. It definitely helps. And when you scroll down on the Amazon page, it definitely doesn't hurt. We'll say that. They're also pretty easy to make, which I liked. And if you're scrolling down on your Amazon page, it goes quickly to those lists of other people's books where they have the option to click away from your book. And I feel like having the big splashy pictures for the Amazon A+ content pulls people back in so they don't, rabbit trail off onto another page.
Which is great because you don't want to be spending money on Facebook ads that just drive people to other authors' books.
Yes, that's the exact point. So another thing we tried changing that I mentioned earlier is we entered it into Kindle Unlimited. So we pulled it from Wide and put it in Kindle Unlimited. And I wasn't making any sales from the other retailers anyway. It was very minimal. It was like 95% Amazon anyway. So it really didn't hurt me to put it in Kindle Unlimited. And now, as I said, I'm making 70% of my revenue from page reads. But only when I'm marketing. If I don't market, eventually it drops off. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But the other variables we changed, obviously we changed the ad copy, which is the words in the ad itself. And then we changed the ad creative, the images that I was just showing you about what worked and what didn't. And then we also experimented with pricing. We definitely found that I got more sales at $4 a book versus $5 a book. But again, because of the app thing that Roland was talking about, where people can directly click through on their phone from the Kindle app to buy, they can click through on the Kindle app and get your book on Kindle Unlimited, but they can't buy it through that app. This unit sales are much lower than the Kindle Unlimited reads. So it may be that you're able to get away with higher prices just because so few people are buying units. So I wanted to talk, it's a podcast, so I know most people don't have much of an attention span for math, but I wanted to talk about the 3 very simple numbers that you need to pay attention to know if your ads are working or not. Because we're saying like, oh, this worked, that didn't work. How do we know, you guys? So 3 different numbers here. The first one is click-through rate. This is very simple math. Divide your number of impressions by your number of clicks. So then you can see how many times somebody has to see your ad before they clicked on it. And the fewer, the better, right? So like if they only have to see it 3 times before they're clicking on it, your ad is amazing. It's doing great. So that's a number that you can look at to see, are people responding to your ad? And if you have a low click-through rate, you don't want to change your book because they're not getting to your book. You're wanting to change your ad because that's measuring if they clicked on the ad, right? If they're not getting past the ad, it doesn't matter what you do to your book page. They haven't seen it. So for that number, if that number is bad, it tells you change things in your ad. The next one is cost per click. This is again telling you, is your ad working? And this is a number that Facebook gives you. I originally thought that click-through rate and cost per click were directly related and they both directly told you how your ad was doing. But it turns out they're both numbers that tell you how your ad is doing, but they're not directly correlated. So you kind of want to look at both of them. But the general idea is the lower cost per click, the better, because it means I spent less money to get more people to look at my stuff. Okay. So Facebook gives you the cost per click on every ad just right up front. So you can just glance at that page, see if it's going up or down. In this one, you want the lower, the better, right? Lower cost is better for you. The third, this is the only tiny bit complicated math if you want an accurate number, but it's very, very important. This is a conversion rate to sales. So you got them from your ad to your page. Did they buy the book or did they read it on Kindle Unlimited? You need that number because if people are getting through, and we repeatedly saw different variations of all these numbers with my ads. If people love the ad and they're getting through and then they don't like the book, you need to figure out what it is that they're running away from on your page, right? So once they get to your page, the things you can change are the cover, which usually not because they've seen the cover in the ad. If they're getting through the ad with the cover on it to your page, it might not be your cover. But you can always try a new cover to see if it does better, if you can afford that kind of thing, because the cover is really something that draws people in. But so if the conversion rate to sales isn't good, you can change your cover, you can change your back jacket copy, you can change your A+ content, you can make sure your book gets more reviews, or you can rewrite the beginning of your book. I did that on my box set just to change where my box set started so that when people clicked on the sample, they would get a better boost into the pages, right? And obviously as authors, we're always trying to make the first pages as grabby as possible to get people reading. But Roland pointed out like, hey, you're advertising your box set. And when people click to read the sample on the box set, it goes immediately to this incredibly long table of contents. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to hook someone with a table of contents, but it's fairly difficult.
That has to be the sexiest table of contents ever.
Actually, so I'm writing this nonfiction book right now on how to write better sex scenes. It's called Write Better Sex. I think I could hook somebody on that. That table of contents is racy. Like Facebook would grab its pearls if it saw that table of contents. But in general, so I cut a huge amount of table of contents and I rewrote the opening pages of my prequel novella because that's where the box set starts and it wasn't as strong as the regular books. And so I did rewrite my opening pages to try to pull people in faster. So conversion rate, how do you calculate it? That's your sales divided by your number of clicks. So if 200 people clicked on your page and only one bought, that's a very bad conversion rate. Sales divided by number of clicks. But once I had Kindle Unlimited reads, I was like, oh, how do I measure that? Because Kindle Unlimited page reads are different than sales. How do I make math for that? And Craig said, Michelle, you can make a very simple equation and it looks like this. You take the number of Kindle Unlimited page reads and you divide it by the length of the book. So if you have a 350 page book and 2,000 page reads, then that's 5.7 books, right? That's the equivalent of somebody reading or buying 5.7 of your books. And so I would add that into my unit sales. I would say, okay, I sold 2. And then with Kindle Unlimited, they basically read the equivalent of 5.7. And I would divide all of those by the number of clicks to get my conversion rate. And it sounds complicated when I say it out loud, but if you write it down on paper, it's super simple. Your 5th grader can do this math. You can totally do this math. And then you know for sure when your ads are converting to sales. And so that conversion number is testing everything on your Amazon page if that's working. It's not testing if your ad is working. It's testing if your Amazon page is working.
I love that. This is all really, really useful. You explained it beautifully.
Thank you. I should have probably written it down for the YouTube people so they could see it on their screen, but it's pretty simple math if you think about it for a second. Okay, so this is the super fun section. This is all the biggest things that I learned from working with you guys. And they were so surprising because it was the things that I didn't know, you know? And that's the biggest thing you can get from a mentorship is you can't Google a question that you don't know to ask. Okay. And I was learning so much of my Facebook ads from Googling and from classes. And like, I wasn't asking a real person in real time, what am I completely missing that I don't even know I should be asking? And so the first thing I found out was like in our first week of mentorship, it was so embarrassing. I was like, oh, you guys, I've run so many ads for so long and I wish my results were better. And immediately they were like, well, you have to run your ads for longer than a week, Michelle. I was like, you do? Because I was running everything for a week and I didn't want to spend money if it wasn't working well. And so if it wasn't working well in the first week, I would shut it off. What we found repeatedly is every one of our ads picked up after 3 weeks. If you run it for about 3 weeks, you start getting better results. So first of all, those 7 touches, which again, I'd read about in sales psychology back in college and completely forgotten about. Don't tell my professors, but they weren't having enough time to get those 7 touches to the 7 times of seeing my ad to want to click on it and buy it. And so I needed to keep my ads running longer to get them more profitable and to get people more familiar with those images. Again, the psychology of the more time you see an image, you start feeling subconsciously more positive toward it. That's just the way humans are. So the next thing I learned is definitely put together. What was that?
With Facebook, it's also learning, right? It's also got its algorithms for improving and figuring out who to deliver your ads to, and the longer you let it run, the better targeting it does for who to especially with small budgets, right? Because it's only going to figure it out based on people that are actually clicking, and if you have a very small budget, then you're not showing it to enough people and it's not getting enough clicks for it to learn fast enough. And if you let it go longer, you give it more of a period to get through that learning phase and eventually improve so that you can sell more later.
That's a good point. And you might learn these lessons a lot faster with a bigger budget. I was going really conservative with a small budget so I could test a lot of things. But if you had more money to burn or you were already getting really good results, you might be able to get Facebook through its learning phase a lot quicker.
Yes, that's one of the frustrating things about it is the bigger your budget, the more it opens up to you in so many different ways. And the learning limited is definitely one. It's like, but there are some people whose entire strategy towards advertising is just throw a ton of money at it and hopefully it'll get the book so conspicuous that it starts to pay for itself. But I don't think many of us have the courage to do that or the income to do that.
For sure, for sure. So the next thing we learned is put together a box set. So once your series is complete, make yourself a box set. It doesn't matter if it's physical, as long as you've got the ebook and it's in Kindle Unlimited. And there's a couple reasons that that's a really important sales tool. The first is that you have a higher price point item to advertise, right? So you're paying the same amount for your Facebook ad, whether it's going to a $4 product or a $10 product. So if you can push it to the $10 product, it's much easier to make those ads profitable. Also, as I mentioned earlier, it works better in Kindle Unlimited because if people have all 6 books right in front of them, it's super easy for them to just keep on reading. Whereas if they just read one book, they have to stop, go back to the internet, borrow the second book. They can get sidetracked by a million bells and whistles on the internet before they get to your next book. If they have them all in front of them, then they can read, even on Kindle Unlimited, where they're not buying up front, they can just start reading and not stop. Or with the selling of the unit sales of the box set, if they buy the box set and they only read 2 of your books and then they drop off, they already paid. You benefit whether they read the whole series or not. So there's a lot of benefit to having a box set for each completed series. I definitely discovered you absolutely have to be in Kindle Unlimited. Like I said, 70% of my revenue came from Kindle Unlimited. So before advertising, and before advertising, I was having 0 organic discoverability. So Kindle Unlimited on its own was not helping me out. It was only in conjunction with advertising that it really helped a lot. I also turned down the price of my ebooks from $4.99 to $3.99 and had better results. And I discovered that I could turn up the price of my paperbacks. So I mostly don't sell very many paperbacks. It's just here and there. And I found it really didn't make a difference if they were $9.99 or $14. And when we did the research of other indie authors, we found, oh goodness, their paperbacks are $14, $15, no problem. So I felt comfortable upping the price of my paperbacks, which was nice.
And I don't necessarily know if you saw any change in it, but there is a school of thought that thinks if you have your paperback set at a high price, it makes your Kindle book look that much more affordable.
It really does. If you had... So I grew up in a whole family of small business owners, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking about, you want the loss leading item, you want those little impulse buy purchases over by the cash register. And in books, we don't have that much variability in our price point. And one of the only ways you can get variability in your price points is by having that paperback. So they have they have an expensive looking item next to a cheaper looking item. So it might make them more likely to buy your ebook. It's a paperback so that people don't have e-readers can still buy your book, right? You want that accessibility. And then when you have a box set, you have another higher price point item to either make your other stuff look cheaper or to be able to advertise to people so that you have something else that you can make money from them faster, right? You have something more valuable to offer. The Kindle Unlimited stamp on the ads was very useful. I didn't think of that before, but it's a good reminder to them quickly that you can find the book in Kindle Unlimited. The multi-pane video ads rather than static image ads that we talked about earlier that doubled or tripled my click-through rate. Those were incredible. I wish we'd started testing those right from the beginning. I don't know why I didn't think of them sooner. And we even had a multi-pane video ad where it was for the box set, and Roland made a little Kindle frame and flashed through all the covers for the whole series, right? All 6 books covers. And so that wasn't different couple images, but we still found people responded better to that video with the flashing different images than they did to a video that had a static image and just a dynamic movement element on top of it. So this was my big discovery after I quit working with you. Well, after we kind of wrapped up our mentorship, right? I emailed you about this because I was really excited. What I noticed was there's kind of a prime the pump effect I wasn't expecting with Kindle Unlimited, where when I stopped my ads, the Kindle Unlimited read kept going. And I was like, hey, how long is this going to keep going? Because when I wasn't advertising before, I was getting 0. Every now and again, somebody would find my book and read the whole thing, and that was about it, right? So when it kept going after I turned off my ads, I was really surprised. And what I found is if I just left it, after about 30 days, it would drop off. And that makes sense, right? All the people who've borrowed your book from your ad are now getting around to reading it, and they keep reading it after you've stopped advertising. But at a certain point, there's nobody new borrowing the book. And so that drops off to nothing. So what I found was, and I started experimenting with this over a period of several months, and it's been very durable, very consistent results. If I run my ads for about a week, a month, then it keeps my Kindle Unlimited reads at about a mid-grade level, right? It's not as high as it was when I was advertising 4 weeks out of the month, obviously, but I'm only paying for ads 1 week a month, so it's much more profitable. I'm paying for 1 week of ads and getting all those page reads. So for me, it's definitely a good strategy, and I think I'm probably going to just keep doing it forever going forward, just advertising. And I don't have to make new ads all the time. I just turn on and off the same ads that have been working. I turn them on for 1 week a month, and then it gets my Kindle Unlimited reads up, and they stay up for about 30 days, and then I get another batch, and I don't pay for as much advertising. The one thing I will caution you about with this is the conversion rate to sales that we were talking about earlier, where you're testing, okay, is this ad selling my book? That's not going to look as good as you think it will on the 1 week a month ads, because you don't get the metric that you actually need. Amazon doesn't tell you when people borrow your book from Kindle Unlimited. They only tell you when people start reading it. So what I'm finding is that's not showing up in the conversion rate for these 1 week a month ads. I know a lot of people are borrowing the book, but I don't see the unit sales or the Kindle Unlimited page reads necessarily in the moment. They show up over the course of the month. So it's okay if you're running your ads 1 week a month and your conversion rate looks worse. If your Kindle Unlimited page reads are looking better throughout the whole month, they're still working.
That's great information.
Yeah.
One more metric I forgot to write down here, and I just remembered it, that Roland taught me is so we're running all these different kind of ads, right? We've got all these different images. When do you change your ad? When you're like, okay, this ad is old, everybody's seen it a million times. If they're going to buy from this image they've already bought, when do you decide to change that? And what we found was, I mean, obviously you can just wait for the ad performance to deteriorate. When it starts to drop off and get worse on the same ad, then you change your ad. But what we noticed is the frequency. If you go into your Facebook page and change the columns of what data is shown so that it shows you the frequency, this shows you how many times has a specific person seen my ad. Is that right? Am I explaining
Yes,
that number
that's
right?
correct.
Okay, so frequency is the number of times that they've seen your ad. And what we found is when that number gets to about 3, so technically, like if a person's seen your ad about 3 times, that's when it starts to drop off. That's generally when the ad performance starts to drop off and you need to refresh your ad. So you can watch the frequency number, or you can watch your general ad performance and decide to swap out that ad at that time. Is that correct in that if it's a 3 frequency, if we're looking for a 7 touches, but people have only seen it 3 times and then it starts to drop off, why is that? Do you know?
I think
of the exact same touches, right? Like, you're not saying you're turning off your ad, you're changing it, and that ad will still be shown to those same people, but now it's a little bit different. The same one over and over again. It's like you watch the same commercial over and over again. Like, it's enough, right? But then they swap out their commercials on TV, and they all of a sudden have a new commercial, and it's not like it's not like they stopped selling that product because everyone's seen the commercial. They just changed the commercial.
And I think even though you can often have your little stable of different taglines, so it's kind of not seeing the same ad all the time. However, normally the image is the same or something like that. So I think it's fair to say that when you've got a stable of taglines for the same ad, if you get a frequency of like 3, then you kind of touch that person 3 times, or maybe it's actually more like 1 3/4 or 2 1/2 or something like that, because they've seen the image again and again, but they haven't. The taglines might have been different, but it's kind of done. They've seen that and they're familiar with it, and then you want to show them something else, and that would count as more touches. And I think a lot of times there are people who keep seeing adverts, and then it's not until they see a distinct variation on the advert that's when they sort of move forward to the next step in the sales funnel.
And that frequency is an average too, isn't it? Like, it's not every person has seen it 3 times. I believe it's an average.
Yeah, that's true.
Some will have seen it more than us.
Yeah. Okay, so those were all the results that I wanted to share. That was a lot summarize really quickly, but I learned so much from this mentorship, and I'm really glad that I did it, because again, there's just all these questions that I didn't know to Google, and I learned a lot about the nuts and bolts of how you do things, how you work with the Facebook interface, the psychology behind some of it, from you guys. But mostly, I think the biggest takeaway is that 10 times increase in revenue. Like, I just got in front of so many more readers and got my books out there so much more because of all this advertising. And it gave me more of a sense of control over my career, that when I want to sell more books, I can go in, open up a Facebook ad, and now I know the principles that I need to use to sell more books. And I can just do that kind of whenever I have some money to throw at it. And that's an incredibly amazing, empowering thing, right? When there's so many things in your author career that are out of your control, and you feel like you just have to sit back and wait and hope for the best. And so instead of, getting religion, I can get Facebook ads and get some clear, quick results. So that was really empowering and wonderful.
Oh, well, that is so nice to hear. I mean, I've always believed that anybody has the potential to be a successful self-published author if they learn the craft of writing, which is something you've done. You've been traditionally published. You've spent so much time and effort making your books as good as they can be. And that's the stuff you can't fake. And then there is a process for advertising your books that you can go through. And, your success with it might vary as you go along. But I mean, yeah, you've managed to achieve a lot of things that a lot of other authors would aspire to. And you're still only on the first steps of the road. There's more of Michelle to come.
I know, right? They say with indie authors, like, the more books you put out, the higher your overall revenue. And 9 books felt like a lot to me, but in terms of have bigger backlist, there's plenty of people out there with much bigger backlist to keep building on. But it's important what you say. Like, it's good to have the highest quality books possible, but if nobody's finding those books, it just doesn't matter what's inside. You need to give them a way to find your books so that quality that you put all that effort into matters. And if you can put together a great Facebook ad in half an hour that ends up helping people discover the book that you worked on for 2 years, that is a good use of time.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't just disappear into the ether of the internet, because the days when there were few enough books on Amazon that people could just go and wander across your book. I mean, those days are long gone, if they were ever real.
They were real back in the old days. God, I used to design covers on PowerPoint and still sell books, but yeah, those days are over.
Yeah, 10 years ago, that was the way. But listen, I think that this is what we're looking for, is to be able to help you have the ability to go forward and apply all this stuff on your own without, you don't need us to, so we do these 1-hour consults a lot, and that's great when there's a specific question and somebody just needs a bit of help with something. But sometimes we need sort of a longer period, and the goal is not to just keep you on the hook forever like a psychologist or something, but it's like for us to show you that here are the tools, here's how to use them, get you comfortable enough that you can then go forward and do it yourself, and from then on, like you said, take control of your own career and achieve the success that you're due, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, I was seeing results within the first 3 weeks. Like, immediately upon working together, I was getting better results, but they just kept getting better and better and better as we went along and refined more things, tested more variables, tested different kinds of ads and stuff. But yeah, that idea that you can't just learn how well an ad is going to do in the first week with a very low budget was a very important lesson for me, to stick with it longer and get better results.
These things take time. Like writing a book takes time. I mean, that's the thing. In some ways, for you look at what we do for a living, it's madness, isn't it? But we feel this urge to keep on doing it. So it's good to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you commit to it.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for all of your help with that and for everything that you shared. I'm hoping that people listening to this podcast will have just picked up a lot of hard-earned lessons from us very quickly.
Sure they will. Yeah, for sure.
And this won't be the last time we hear from you, I am sure.
No, definitely not.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to go through all of the amount of work that you put into what you presented to us is incredible. And thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no problem. I was really happy to go back through all the numbers and find kind of how to quantify all the success, because I knew we'd been doing better and I knew there'd been a lot of good results, but I wanted to do the numbers and see exactly. I was pretty blown away by that 10 times increase in revenue. I knew it was good. I didn't think it was that good.
Oh, well, that is awesome to hear. Well, Craig, before we wrap things up and ask Michelle to let everyone know where they can find her books, do you have any final questions?
No, listen, I think that, like you said, this has been a rewarding experience on, I think, both of our sides. Roland and I loved working with you. We learn a lot too whenever we work with an author. Every author is different, and it's challenging sometimes to figure out what it is that will make their specific set of books and their genre and all of the things that make them unique successful. And sometimes it's marketing, but sometimes it's Facebook ads, sometimes it's general marketing, sometimes it's help with their books or just just different advice on self-publishing in general. And we love helping authors with that. So hopefully anyone watching this, they might have the confidence to reach out and talk to us, and we'd be happy to try and help them as well. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for being so transparent with everything and keeping track of everything. And all the numbers, you did a fabulous job with that, much better than Roland and I would ever do. With our ADD brains, we can't get all that organized together. But I'm so happy that you were willing to come on and share this with us, and that you've succeeded so well.
Oh, thank you. And I love all the services you guys do with Hidden Gems. Like, there's a lot of value if you start digging into the website for different ways that you can help indie authors. And indie authors need help, right? Because we have too many options and we don't know which ones work.
There's a lot of analysis paralysis, I guess, which is the thing. It's like, what route do you take? And at the end of the day, it's like everyone, the route to success might be different for everyone, but you have to try one road to find out whether it works.
Well, and good use of money. I think efficient use of money is the biggest barrier for indie authors, because you can throw a lot of money at things and get results, but are you getting the best results for your dollar? Like that blog I gave you about the newsletter promotions, trying to get the best value for your dollar. And then with the Facebook ads, everything we were doing with the variables just to squeeze, more results out of fewer dollars.
Absolutely.
So where to find me? If you need help with editing, book coaching, career coaching, you can find me on sanctuaryeditorial.com. I named my editing business kind of after the tone of the way I like to work with my clients. So I have a overarching, wonderful, nurturing tree on my Sanctuary Editorial page. And then if you want to find my books, they're at michellehazenbooks.com or on Amazon. And that's Hazen with a Z, like is in zebra. And I've got my whole Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll rocker series that we were talking about, which is found family, like a tight-knit group of bandmate friends. And then I have rom-coms. I have a little bit angstier, kind of women's fiction leaning romance from my traditional publishing career, like all different kinds of books, and more to come in the next couple of years. So come find me there. And thank you guys so much for all of your help.
Oh, well, it has been a pleasure working with you. Any final thoughts, Craig?
No, thanks again, Michelle. And I'm sure we'll talk to you very soon.
Well, if you have enjoyed what you have listened to, and if you found value in everything that Michelle has shared with us, when there is enormous value in it, please show her some love. Go scroll down to the description, click on her link, check out everything she does. Also, leave Michelle a comment. Let her know how much you've appreciated everything she shared with us today. Post any questions you have, any thoughts you have. We would love to read them while you're down there. If you haven't already, there's a subscribe button. There is the bell icon. There is the like button. Hit that like button, and the bell icon will alert you every time there is a new episode of Fully Booked. And of course, there will be a new episode of Fully Booked coming out next week. So join us then. And until then, cheerio.